What's up, guys? Today we're working on the EK. We're going to be turning up the boost a little bit and making just a little bit more power. Stay tuned. So here's the car. It's been running great except for a few problems. I've been having some issues with overheating. I think it was like a combination of two things. So here the fan switch is bad. I've verified that now at this point. It works sometimes. Most of the time it doesn't come on until the temperature is way too hot. So right now this is a shielded paper clip that I have in here, and that's just bridging my fan switch. So the fan stays on all the time. It's the middle of summer. It's 90 degrees outside. So it's probably for the best. The other problem that was happening is this overflow tank. The cap is super messed up. It's like all warped on the inside and outside. So coolant wasn't even getting into here. When this was getting hot and it was pushing coolant out into here, it was just spilling out the cap. So I took this out. This is just a temporary fix. But you know how all the 17-year-olds replace their coolant overflow with a Monster can? I actually did exactly that. And it's been working great. It's not boiling over at all. Even when the coolant was getting too hot because of the fan switch, it still wasn't boiling out. And there is a breather in here. I drilled a hole for a breather and drilled a hole for the hose. So it should function just as a regular overflow. And now that I have the fan switch on all the time, it's not really overheating. It's still running a little hotter than I want it to when it's sitting. It's like 186 degrees. Thermostat opens at 172. So that's quite a bit hotter than I want it to be. Realistically, I think I need a better radiator and a better fan setup for the turbo setup, and then we should be fine. Another issue that I ran into is that the car with the same tune as before was incredibly slow. The tune was a little bit rich, and I think that had something to do with it being slow, but it's a little bit lower compression than a stock Y7, and I think that also adds to it being slow. But this car was probably slower than an SI, I would think, and it's a D16 turbo. Even though it's Y7, should still be faster than a stock SI. And it was only quick in boost. It made like no power outside of boost. So I adjusted the tune. I got the air-fuel ratio right. I completely changed the ignition timing. A stock Y7 ignition map is really weird. So there's the whole discrepancy, I don't know if you know, with the D16Y engines, they run 12 degrees base timing, and the Z6, which is what my ECU is from, or I think my ECU is actually from a D15. Either way, those run 16 degrees base timing. So what you're supposed to do is run a Z6 sprocket, which I actually have right here on this Z6, but I don't feel like taking it off. So I'm running the stock Y7 cam gear and running 21 degrees of ignition timing at idle, or 20 degrees. And then I made my own ignition map. I took the Y7 map and the Z6 map. I kind of made a hybrid of both. I raised the ignition timing. The Y7, I was running 21 degrees at 0 pounds of boost, and then retarding 1.25 degrees from there. So at 7 pounds of boost, it was at like 10 degrees, which is way, way too conservative. Now at 0 pounds of boost, I'm running about 26 degrees, and then I retarded 1 degree per pound from that point on. So when we turn up the boost, we should be running about 15 degrees, I believe. Yeah, 15 degrees at 10 pounds of boost. And it should be a lot better. Actually, a little higher than that, I think. That's because that's at 11.2. So we should be running about 16 and a half degrees at 10 pounds of boost, which this should like a lot better. After I adjusted the timing and the fuel maps, this car was a million times faster, and it seems to like it just fine. So today, what we're gonna do is I made some more changes to the fuel map and some more changes to the ignition table, just dialing it in a little bit. And I'm gonna put that on the car, make sure it's good. I'm also gonna set a boost cut at 5 pounds of boost, just so I can verify the boost cut in the ECU is working. Then when I put the boost controller on, I'll set the boost cut to like 10.5 pounds, and we should be good to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. I made some changes to my tune and then I smoothed out the map. So I have a feeling that it might be a little bit off at idle. The rest of the tune is probably perfect. So I'm just gonna flash the tune to the chip, start the car up, see what it's idling at. All right, so boost cut set at 5 pounds. The new tune is flashed, so let's go ahead and start it up and see what's idling at. Now this isn't going to be the best test because it's not at running temperature. So we'll see what it's idling at right now, but I'm going to take it for a drive and get it up to temperature. It doesn't take long in this car. But let's see what it's at right now. Okay, so it's in the 15s. That's actually pretty good. So now it's getting pretty lean, and we won't know for sure what it's going to be until it's at running temperature. However, my goal for this car seems to idle really well around 15.5. Any leaner than that, it starts to like pop a little bit. So I want a good idle. And then cruising speeds, I'm aiming for 16 at cruising. I have a really far drive to work, and this car's been killing me on gas, so I want really, really good gas mileage. Honestly, the closer to 16 at regular driving speeds, the better. Once I get into it, then I do have sort of a lean setup. At 0 pounds of boost, I have it at 13, and then it slowly goes down to 12. I think at 10 pounds, I'm gonna have it at 11.5, and everywhere up from there at 11.5. But when you're on the freeway and you slightly get into boost and it drops down to 11.5, that's no good. So like I said, I'm really shooting for kind of a hybrid between performance and gas mileage. But we'll see how it ends up. So I'm gonna go ahead and back this thing out and take it for a quick drive. Okay, so this is where the air fuel is at idle, which is not good. It needs a little bit more fuel just so it idles smoothly. Cruising speeds, air fuel is almost perfect, so I'll probably end up messing with it a little bit. Boost cut at 5 pounds works perfect. It cut out just fine, so I'm gonna go ahead and set that to 10.5, and I'm gonna adjust this idle really quick because this is pretty bad. So we'll see if I can get that down just a little bit. All right, so just so you guys can see what I'm working on, this area right here is about 16.9. This is an old data log. I just threw this idle in here really quick to do the math for me. Here's my AFR targets. So you can see, you know, at 11 pounds of boost, we want 11.5, and anything above that, we're gonna be at 11.5. But other stuff, we're kind of lean a little bit in the boost columns, which is, geez, I need to turn that off.
Powering down.
All right, so we're kind of lean in the earlier parts of the boost, which is what I want so that I can be a little bit leaner when I'm cruising in 5th gear on the freeway for gas mileage purposes. And then we want around 15.5 at idle, because that's where I think it seems to like to idle best, and then go up to 16 in cruising areas and high 15s. So that's what I'm working on right now, because I threw it in here. We can see kind of what our multiplier needs to be. We need to add 9% in the idle area, and then 6% in the 1200s column right there. So that's what I'm gonna do. And then we'll go ahead and adjust it just a little bit from there. Okay, so I got my thing up right here. We're gonna select up to here, like that, and we'll increase this 9%. And then these 3 right here, we'll increase 6%. And then we're gonna go in the options right here. Yeah, and our boost limit, I already set it to 10.5. So I'm gonna go ahead and save that and write it to the car. And then we'll go ahead and install, well, we'll see what it idles at, and then we'll install the boost controller. So that change got it a little bit better. It's in high 15s, low 16s now. And I'm sure as the car gets warmer, that'll get a little bit more rich. Car's running a lot better. I would still like it to be closer to 15.5, like mid 15s. So I'll make some adjustments, but this is close enough to keep the car running decent for now. I'm gonna go ahead and install the boost controller. Okay, so this is the boost controller that came with my turbo kit. It's no name, has no name on the box at all. It's like a really shitty kind of bleed valve. So if we pull this out, you just got some crappy vacuum hose, which might be fine. And then here's the bleed valve. And here's the T that it came with. Looks okay. The thing about these is they don't perform perfectly great, but it'll do the trick for what I'm trying to do. And I have the boost cut in the ECU just in case. So if anything fails with this, I'm not gonna blow up my motor. I probably wouldn't buy one of these, but it came with my turbo kit. So I'm gonna go ahead and use it. I'm not gonna perma-mount this right now, I don't think. Looks like it could maybe go in one of these if I bent it. Yeah, no way. I don't think I'm gonna mount it. I think I'm just gonna zip tie it. At least for now. I'll mount it eventually maybe, but I'll probably end up getting a better boost controller. So this T is just gonna go right here in this line, and then we'll have a short vacuum hose that goes over here to this thing. That'll be zip tied, and then this is how we will adjust the boost. So to be clear, this line that I'm cutting goes straight from the intake manifold. This is on one of the other ports. It might be on the PCV valve port or the emissions port. Either one. The emissions thing, the purge valve was moved to the one below, and then this one was repurposed because I don't have a PCV valve, so this just goes straight to the wastegate. It looks like the clamps that came with the kit do fit this vacuum line, so I'm going to use them. But I don't know how strong these are. Zip ties hold my things on right now, so I think it'll probably be fine. All right, that seems okay. So once you have that T in there, really all you do is run a vacuum from that nipple on the T to this bottom port. The top port is just the vent. So the bottom port is the one that the vacuum needs to go to, and this seals, and then once you hit a certain boost pressure, it starts to let some of the boost out of here, and that prevents the full amount of pressure getting to the wastegate. All right, that's got to be one of the simplest installs I've ever done. Hopefully this kink doesn't affect anything. I don't really think that it will. I think the boost will open it up if anything. They didn't give me enough clamps, so I used these 2 clamps, but then I had to use zip ties for here and here. So I guess that's fine. I got zip ties holding other boost lines on. They haven't come off. That probably won't work under high boost situations, but these probably won't either. So I'll get some better clamps at some point. But we're going to go ahead and take this thing for a rip and see how it does. All right, so after a drive, here's where the idle is. A little bit closer to what I want it to be. Over here, if we look at this, I didn't go for that long of a drive because something's wrong. I was hitting 10 pounds of boost, and I cranked it the other way to see if maybe the labels are wrong. But anyway, something's wrong. I think the T is installed wrong. I'll figure it out. But this car is fast. So I let off manually at 10 pounds. I didn't even let it hit the cutoff. But like, I don't know, halfway through the revs, this thing rips. And then here's what I have on the data log. As you can see, I'm so much closer to my numbers that I actually want. This is really, really, really good. As you can see in boost, it starts at around 13 and gets down to the 11s by around between 6 and 7 pounds. So that's pretty much perfect. I'm assuming that this tune is going to be great. It pulls hard, it runs good. But we're gonna go ahead and watch some videos, figure out what I did to install this thing wrong, and try to fix it. Okay, so it turns out my problem is that this actually doesn't work. So this is correct. This goes in here like this, and then this nipple right here goes out to the bleed valve. The problem is no boost is getting through this tiny little hole. There's this hole here, and then inside there's a ball and spring. So this is supposed to be a check valve, basically, so that this doesn't create a vacuum leak, because this bleeds off pressure. So what would end up happening if there's no check valve here is this will end up sucking in air and will give a really small vacuum leak. The car will still run okay, and it'll make boost as long as this part's working properly. But really, you do want a check valve in this line if you're going to be running some kind of vent to atmosphere. So what I'm actually going to do for now is just get this thing working at the boost pressure that I want, and then worry about the check valve part of it. So to do that, I'm going to actually open it up, and I'm going to pull the ball and spring out, and then I'm going to drill a hole in this end to match this end, so that this is just going to function as a T at that point. And then once we get everything working, I don't really understand why this hole is so small right here. So I think drilling it out is actually going to make everything better. And then I'll put the ball and spring back in and see if it works. Another thing is, based on the design on the inside, it looks like the ball and spring should be on this one. Like they just designed the whole thing wrong. I'll take it apart and show you what I'm talking about. All right, so if you take a look, we have the ball and spring right here. And then here's the end that the ball was in. Now, in my opinion, this tapered end looks like the ball should go in there, not in this one. See how they're different? So what I'm going to end up doing is drill the holes out so that they're the same otherwise, get it working as a T, and then once I'm all done and I have everything working, I'm going to try flipping the ball and spring around. I'm going to try it in this end, and I'm going to try it in this end, because I would like to have a check valve working. If none of that works, then I'm probably going to end up making my own boost controller and making this work just with parts from Home Depot. I could even just go get a vacuum check valve and then use a regular T. But we'll see. I'm going to go ahead and drill this out and then put everything back together without the ball and spring. Okay, so now I'm gonna close this thing all the way and make sure that it doesn't leak. So really, with this closed, it should perform just as it did before with just wastegate pressure. So we should be good. But I'm gonna go ahead and take this thing out. All right, so really quickly, as you can see, the car doesn't want to idle because this is a vacuum leak. But if I seal that off, the car will calm down and it'll idle. So that, now it should be okay. But that is why this needs to be a check valve. So I actually had to unscrew this thing 42 clicks to get this to run 10 pounds of boost. So I think that this actually functioned as a restrictor before I drilled it out as well, because I can't see this running more than like 15 pounds of boost with this setup. But I think the way that it worked was this was a restrictor, and there was probably a minimum of like 15 pounds that you could run the way that it was originally set up with that small hole in there. So you probably want to drill that somewhere between where I have it and where it came. But I'm gonna go ahead and shut this off, let it cool down. We're gonna put the ball and spring back in there and see if this works without a vacuum leak. All right, so now that this is cooled off a little bit, I'm gonna go ahead and reinstall the ball and spring, and we'll take it for another drive. So quickly, this dude is going through the Taco Bell drive-thru with a golf cart. Anyway, I pulled over in this Taco Bell because I put the ball and spring back in and the boost controller completely stopped working. So I just don't think that that check valve was designed correctly. I'm actually gonna flip the nipples on there and put the ball and spring in the other side, and we'll see, because I showed you that that one's tapered, and I think that one's actually supposed to have the ball and spring. I think they just like completely screwed up creating this check valve. So I'm gonna try that, and then if that doesn't work, then we're just gonna have to put a different check valve on there, which should be fine. I should be able to get something from Home Depot, I would think. But I'm gonna go ahead and switch them around and see if it works. Okay, so that didn't work either, and I'm not giving up yet. I'm actually gonna cut down the spring in here because I think there's not enough room for the ball to press in to actually function as a check valve. So I'm gonna cut down the spring. We are going to get this thing working. Unless I cut down the spring too much, then obviously we're gonna be in a little bit different of a situation. God, it's hot. Okay, so I actually took out the spring completely because it seemed like there's no room for the ball to move in there. And now with the spring completely out, I can feel the ball shaking a little bit, and I think the vacuum will actually seal it, and then the boost will push it out of the way. So I don't think that we actually need the spring. So if we do, I can like cut 1 or 2 pieces off of this and stick it in there to kind of hold the ball into place, but I don't think that's actually necessary. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this thing back in the car just the way it is, make sure there's no vacuum leak, and then I think it'll work just fine under boost. What's going on, guys? I've never done anything like this before, so hopefully this footage turns out okay. So it's been a while since I finished that video, so I figured I would just show you guys the results of that video. Since then, I've switched what I'm using to tune my car. The car is now tuned on Honda Tuning Suite. It is pretty much the same exact tune that I had with Chrome, but a little bit better launch control, things like that. Got the tune nice and dialed in now. The secret to that boost controller was taking the spring out. So if you have the same crappy boost controller, I wouldn't drill out the T, I would just take the spring out. What drilling out the T did made me have to unthread the boost controller almost all the way just to make 12 pounds of boost. Well, between 10 and 12, depending on the gear. It's a little iffy. But that's all I'm running right now. And honestly, this car is absolutely amazing. It makes me so happy. So we're about to get on the freeway, and I'll do a poll and I'll show you guys how this thing works. It is very rainy, as you can see. video out to you guys. Alright, I'm just going to show you guys how much boost I'm running here. So we will downshift to third. And I'll do a small little pull. So you can see we're running around 11 pounds of boost. I'm going to slow down just so you can see what my air fuel ratios are too. You can see my tune's good. Do another pull. Pretty good. We'll get to the smoother part of the road. Alright, now we're to the nice smooth section of road. You can do a couple more pulls. It's a little bit drier, or it's a little bit more dry over here too. So honestly, it just sounds so good when the wastegate opens. It makes me really happy. This car sounds so good. And it just works. Right now, I'd say it makes probably a little bit over 200 wheel horsepower, which isn't a whole ton. I mean, like I said, it's running about 11 pounds of boost. That's the most you can run on the stock map sensor. Now, I told myself that I wouldn't go any more boost until I get the intake air temperature sensor properly installed, and also an oil pressure gauge. At that point, I'll probably buy like a Honda 4-bar map sensor or something like that, just so I can make a little bit more boost. For now, my next limiting factor is going to be the DSM injectors that I have in here. The goal for this car is to make 350 wheel horsepower. I think that's a really good number. The motor's built for 400. I think the Viterra pistons are only rated for 400 horsepower. I know people have ran more with them than that. But the block's not sleeved. I don't have a block guard or anything like that. Maybe one day I'll go for a high number, but I'm just trying to make something fun to drive that's even dailyable, which right now, that's exactly what this car is, and I don't want to ruin it. Like, part of me is just, hold on, we'll do another one here. Break a axle or something. Anything with a ton of power. This makes me happy, but I just always told myself I'd build a Honda that makes more than 300 horsepower. I thought I was going to do it with a B series, but if I can do it with a D series, that's awesome. So yeah, like I was saying, I know that as soon as I throw more power at this car, I'm probably going to start breaking stuff, and it's probably going to be less fun for me. So if that happens, I might end up turning down the boost. And this car, I just always want this car to work. I want it to be nice. I want to be able to take it to shows. I don't want to be breaking this car nonstop. I'd rather break another car. I'd literally rather break any other car that I own. And I know that being turboed, this car is probably going to give me most of the problems, being turboed and bag. But lately, that hasn't really been the case. I don't know. I'm so excited to finally
on data. So I didn't even know about Honda Tuning Suite, which is awesome. You should check it out. Anyway, guys, if you like the channel, if you like this kind of stuff, go ahead and subscribe for me. Give this video a thumbs up. This has been a long time in the making, getting this car up and making good boosts. I have plenty of other videos. I have videos of pretty much the complete build of this car, as well as all of my other cars that I've owned. So go ahead and check those out. I appreciate everybody who's subscribed to my channel, everybody who watches regularly. You guys are the real MVPs, and you are the motivation for me to keep making these videos. Anyway, guys, you all have a good day. Thank you so much for watching. Peace out.